Hi everyone, my name is Viola and the title of my presentation is Mindfulness Workshops for Public Libraries. My presentation is about an initiative I began in 2019 to bring mindfulness workshops to public libraries in the Sacramento area. In this presentation, I will go over a brief introduction of my initiative. I will discuss the impact and outcomes of the workshops. And I'll take a brief look at the workshops that I've taught so far and the feedback I've received, as well as the trends and goals for my initiative. Let's take a look at the quick introduction. I'm a current student in the MLIS program at San Jose State, and I currently work in public libraries in the Sacramento area. From the very start of my career in public libraries, which was in 2016, I expressed an interest to my manager about contributing to programs in some way. I wanted to gain experience designing and facilitating programs, and I have a strong interest in community wellness and self-care. I'm a yoga instructor, and I wanted to bring together my passion for yoga instruction and self-care and my passion for library services. One way to do this would be to offer mindfulness workshops at public libraries. And the inspiration for these workshops came from talking with patrons and seeing the different kinds of stresses that they were dealing with. They would share their stories with me when they would come up to me at the ref desk. And I also began to understand just the potential that the library has to really support patrons in a personal way. I also drew inspiration from the Center for the Future of Libraries because their trends report mentions unplugging as a growing trend in public libraries. We can expect to see more and more patrons wanting to experience relaxing spaces in the library, but also finding resources and materials related to wellness, mindfulness, and just being able to navigate a world of constant connectedness. Putting all of this together, I saw the wonderful potential of mindfulness workshops to not only support patrons in relieving some of their stresses, but learning lots of helpful tools and techniques that they could take back out into the world and the community with them and find lots of support from these techniques. A little bit more on the rationale for my initiative. I presented this list in a proposal to my manager, justifying the value of the mindfulness workshops. I saw a few wonderful benefits for community members, potentially for staff if the workshops were offered to staff, and just a lot of overall mental and physical health benefits for participants in the workshops. On the community side, the stress relief and relaxation and unplugging benefits would be fantastic. The workshops would also bring patrons into the library and create positive patron engagement, but also they would be accessible and affordable. By accessible, I designed the workshops to be open to all ages, all backgrounds, all levels of ability. A lot of patrons would express fear to me about trying mindfulness and meditation techniques. They worried that they wouldn't be able to do them. Maybe they had tried meditation before and it was just too hard. So I designed the workshops to really be accessible, to make the tools very practical and very applicable to different kinds of situations. Very easy to use, easy to apply, and fun as well. The workshops would also be affordable. They would be zero cost for participants. And this is immensely valuable considering that if patrons had to take these workshops in gyms or yoga studios, they might have to pay a membership fee or a drop-in payment to access these courses or workshops. So being able to have this kind of accessibility and affordability at the public library would just be immensely valuable to our community members. On the staff side, if workshops were offered to staff for mindfulness and meditation, I saw this as being very supportive of staff and their own ability to manage stress. Now, most of us who work in public libraries know that the job can be quite stressful. Not a day goes by that there isn't some conflict or crisis, however small, and over time this wears down on our ability to support each other as coworkers and also to care for our patrons. Overall, being able to practice mindfulness and to be calm in the moment, but to also know when and how to take care of ourselves and each other can create a more trauma sensitive and healing atmosphere in the library. And overall, the health benefits of mindfulness and meditation are so vast. Scientific research continues to document these benefits. They include relief for pain, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, recovery from addiction, support during cancer treatment, and enhanced cognitive ability as we go through the aging process. Mindfulness and meditation have also been shown to slow down the aging process by reducing chromosomal damage on the cellular level. So just lots of wonderful physical and mental health benefits to the practice of mindfulness and meditation, and overall a wonderful thing to offer to our community through our public libraries. Let's take a quick look at the impact and some outcomes that I anticipated for the workshops. I hoped that patrons would experience immediate relaxation within the time and space of the workshop itself, and they'd be able to take away practical tools and techniques, maybe breathing techniques or gentle stretches or techniques for deep relaxation. They would walk away with these techniques and they could take them home, continue to practice with them, to apply them in their personal lives. They would be able to cultivate greater self-awareness and awareness of their environment. They would enhance their ability to focus and concentrate and to build positive self-care routines. They would also be able to hear about materials in the library, different offerings related to mindfulness and meditation, as well as community resources. Now, the wonderful thing is all of these outcomes were things I was able to implement during the workshops. And after each workshop, I held a discussion with participants to see what they gained from the workshops and wanted to have more of. So a little bit more about the personal feedback that I received. This feedback was very important to me. I wanted to make sure that the workshops were relevant to participants, and that if they had a need that hadn't been met, I could then go back and customize the workshops even more. I invited patrons to fill out a survey after the first two workshops. The survey responses were shared with the manager. She collected these responses and then shared them back with me. And I also invited patrons to talk with me in person, to talk directly with the manager, to just share their feedback with us in any way that was meaningful for them. Patrons overwhelmingly requested that more programs be held and that these programs be held more frequently. And perhaps most valuable to me was a letter that I received from a patron who attended one of the workshops in a second series that was offered. This was offered in the fall of 2019. I will discuss the different workshop series in my next slide. But here's the feedback she gave for me. I've shared it here with her permission. She very generously gave me permission to do so, to share this feedback, not just with my manager, but with anyone who might be interested in hearing about my initiative and my workshops. She expressed that she tried one of the techniques from my workshop, and it was very helpful to her during a medical appointment when she was having her blood pressure checked, and it had an impact on the reading of her blood pressure level, and convinced her even more of the wonderful applicability and effectiveness of mindfulness techniques. So just very wonderful evidence to have of the beautiful impact of such a offering through our public libraries. I shared this letter with my manager, who then shared it with the institutions that funded the initial workshop series. And these institutions were the California State Library, the City of Folsom, and the Friends Group for the Folsom Public Library. So just a wonderful way to see the direct impact of this kind of offering for our community. Let's take a quick look at the workshops themselves, what I've taught so far. I offered two series at the Folsom Public Library in 2019, one in the spring and one in the fall. The one in the fall came back due to popular demand and very positive feedback from participants who attended the spring series. So this is a wonderful example of the library taking feedback from patrons and beginning to implement that feedback and respond to it by providing more workshops for community members. Inspired by the Folsom Library, the Sacramento Public Library decided to create workshops for their branches. And beginning in January 2020, I was able to start teaching workshops through the Sacramento Public Library, beginning with the Antelope branch and the Arcade branch. Both library systems for Sacramento and Folsom have expressed an interest in continuing programming. However, for now, programs have been suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the workshops at the Antelope Library, the March event, was canceled as well due to the pandemic, but the library manager has expressed an interest in rescheduling once our libraries reopen. Just a quick look at some of the specifications I have for my workshops. Again, I'm very flexible. I want these workshops to be accessible and available as much as possible to our community members. All audience members are welcomed. Library branches can have me customize the workshop for a particular audience or a particular need. I'm very happy to do that. And I've already been able to try that out at several of the workshops. I'm available afternoons and evenings, and I'm available for all public library branches in the Sacramento area. Workshop size is variable, of course, and that will change now that we have social distancing in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I just wanted to share with you this page that I've created to archive the workshops. It's wonderful to have a landing page for patrons and participants and for library managers as well who want to see what the workshops have been so far and maybe see the announcements for future workshops. For now, on this page, I have an announcement saying that workshops have been postponed, but you can also take a look at the archive I have for past events. You can see promotional materials by clicking on those flyers and also for the most recent events. Let's take a quick look at some photos that I wanted to share with you. The first photo is from the Folsom Public Library. The marketing team at that library created this beautiful banner to promote the workshops and share information about the times and dates for those workshops with patrons. This was very beautiful to see. And I also have a photo here of yoga mats. These yoga mats were very generously donated to my workshop initiative by the yoga studio that I teach at. The owner at that studio, I reached out to him to share with him my library events and that these were workshops being offered for free to the community and it would be helpful to bring yoga mats for those who do not have a mat. And he kindly donated these mats, and these mats were very uplifting to participants who came to the workshops and did not have a mat of their own. Let's conclude with some trends and goals. I anticipate that unplugging will continue to be a very important trend in our communities. The need for support with self-care and relaxation is something that will continue to be a reality, and maybe even more so now that we are going through the pandemic. There is a tendency to develop an over-reliance on virtual and technological tools to experience information overload due to following the news of the pandemic and trying to stay abreast of everything that's happening and constantly changing. I anticipate that some community members will experience mental health concerns due to job loss or loss of a loved one to the pandemic. And this makes our service of support to our community even more relevant. Community wellness, virtually or in person, if we offer that support online or if we are able to do so in our libraries, will continue to be very meaningful and valuable to a lot of patrons. Of course, social distancing will continue to be in place and sanitation will be a consideration for workshops for materials being used, such as the yoga mats. I anticipate this should not be too difficult to do to sanitize the mats or perhaps eliminate the use of mats altogether and to also observe social distancing rules. Workshop sizes might be restricted and there might be an opportunity to explore social media tools and online events. So I anticipate being able to do this through the library, and I've begun to have these discussions with my manager. Overall, I hope to continue the workshops once libraries reopen and support our communities in this way. Well, this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for joining me.